I decided to revisit an old photo shoot from maybe December, I think December of 2023. The first thing that I want to do is I want to crop the photo. And a lot of times I crop the photo to an 8x10, and I like to give most of my deliverables to my client in an 8x10, and that looks pretty good. I like this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and crop that. So the look that I wanna go for is more of like a stock 35mm film look. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the white balance. And this is a very good starting point, is hit auto tone. I think there's a little bit too much contrast. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at the photo and I'm gonna adjust the slider to where I think it looks good, pretty good right about there. So that's a -32, okay? And then as for the highlights, I kind of want to go a little bit more with the highlights. The shadows look pretty good. I'm gonna leave it right about there. I'm gonna create 3 anchor points. One here, and one here. And the reasoning behind it is because I wanna create what's called a matte look. So I'm gonna go to the darks, and I'm gonna take this point and I'm gonna drag it up and over. And as I drag it over, you can kind of see in the shadows, it creates this little matte look. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same thing to the lights. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create this little tiny S-curve, a very subtle S-curve, and I think that looks pretty good. So it's kind of adding into a little bit more contrast. And the next thing I'm gonna do is for the midtones, I'm gonna add just a little bit of purple. For the shadows, I want to bring up maybe a little bit of cyan. And then for the highlights, I'm going to add in a little bit more warmth. And with the balance, I mean, you can kind of play around with the balance, but that looks pretty good, maybe a +22. I'm going to do a mask, and I'm going to select her skin right here, just a little bit, because she's already got pretty smooth skin. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And I'm going to reduce the clarity just a tiny bit, okay? And that, it looks like with her arm right here, her skin tone is really smooth and you can still see the texture, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm gonna come down, we're gonna do just a little bit of sharpening. So I don't wanna over sharpen, never wanna over sharpen because it just looks really bad. Radius 1.1, detail maybe up to 30. And then with the masking, you can hold down an Option key, and that brings up this mask. And what I want to do is I want to bring this up just enough to where I can kind of see the outlines of everything. So it looks like maybe like an 8 looks good, and that'll give me like a really good overall sharpening. What I want to do, and this is what's really nice about having this film look, is I want to be able to add grain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the grain up to maybe like a 35, and the size I'm going to bring down to a 5. And what that's going to do is give me like this really nice velvety texture look, and it's going to give me this film, like just this beautiful looking film. Now, the only other thing that I want to do is I want to get rid of this little spray paint sign on the street. So I'm just going to turn the grain off for now, and I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to use like generative AI to get rid of this little sign. So I'm just going to paint over the sign and see what generative AI does. And I'm just going to remove it. And that did a really, really good job. And I'm going to add the grain back in to maybe like a 35, keep the size to a 5. Now that I have my colors set up, they look really nice, I like the overall tone, there's just a couple other tweaks that we could do to give this photo a little bit more dynamic. And one of the things that we can do is we can create a new mask, and we can do what's called a radial gradient. And what I want to do is, the sun is on this side of her body, so I want to kind of mimic where the sun is, and I'm going to start over here and I'm going to create this large kind of like radial gradient. And I want some of it to affect just the highlights in her body, like on her arm and on her head. And this is kind of a big one, but so what I'm gonna do, and you can kind of see it in the mask, but I want to increase the exposure just a little bit more, and I want to look to see how bright this is. Okay, that looks pretty decent. And I want to warm this up just a little bit. I think that looks pretty good. I don't want it too warm. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to dehaze, and I'm going to adjust the dehaze to give it kind of like a glow, but I don't want it too much overdone. This is overdone, so I want to come down maybe just a little bit, and that looks pretty good right there. What I can do is add back just a little bit of contrast, and that'll darken those shadows a little bit more. That looks pretty good right there. And then I want to just kind of bump it up just a tiny bit. That looks pretty good. So now that we have this, we just went through everything, just a couple minutes, very simple. This is the before and the after. Before and after.